Hi everyone, I'm Shwani. Welcome back to another episode of Beauty and Brains. And today I'm here with a special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Maria Loya. I'm here as a guest, as a mentor, whatever they'd like me to be. So we'll go ahead.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit on how you first got into STEM and robotics?
Oh, STEM goes way back. I was first inspired when I was a junior in high school in chemistry. That's where it kind of got turned on to science. Um, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I was the first one in my family to go to college, and I thought I would major in math because that's what I was good at. It turns out that the math program I was in was for teachers, and I wasn't sure I wanted to do that. So I picked up a second major in physics. That was wonderful. I graduated all dressed up with nowhere to go and ended up taking a job in technology. Not really what I should have taken, but it was a job basically so I could earn some money and go back to school because I wanted to go on in my education. Physics was fun, but you can't do much with a bachelor's. But I was working for an engineering company and I got a good look at engineering for the first time. And I wish I had seen it sooner. There aren't any engineers in my family. One of the reasons I took the job is they had an educational, you know, program where they would pay your tuition if you were going back to school while working for them. So I said, that's it, I'm in. And my boss actually encouraged me and said, no, go down to NJIT. He actually gave me the name of a professor to look up that owed him a favor. 5 years of night school, I had a bachelor's in chemical engineering, and that was really got me started. A long and winding road after that. And I wore my SWE stuff so you can see. But it was SWE that really helped me get my identity as an engineer because my company wasn't ready to recognize that. Even though I had the degree, they were like, oh, no, no, you're the technician we hired. No, 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 no. But eventually I left and I did much better. It was high tech, it was the late 90s. And when everything kind of came to a screeching halt and .com went away and I got laid off at the beginning of 2003. Now, because I was the first one in my family to go to college and it was something special to me, I had always been involved with educational outreach. There was a group at my company that said, we'd like to go to those schools where we know the parents are not scientists and engineers and tell them about what we do. And I signed up immediately. And I learned a lot from doing that. And so in 2003, I'm sitting there with a pile of, letters trying to figure out my next, job. And a lot of them were from kids who said, gee, I wish you were my science teacher, which is something I totally avoided at the beginning. So I said, oh, why not? I can teach chemistry and physics. Started out like that. I got the state, uh, what do you call it? State license for it, alternate route, just did it. And I figured, though, that was it. Who knows? But since I had industry experience, my school said, well, what we need you to do two more things. One was start up a science research program. The other was start up an engineering program. And the science research program was special. I had a lot of kids who were like high flyers in that one. But the engineering program attracted a lot more people. And I was wishing it was attracting more girls at the beginning. It's hopefully going to do that. I always had a trouble with the ratio of girls in my class, but it was um, it became a very popular class, engineering. And I got to invent it the way it ran. Now, engineering needed a lot of things. So one of the first big things I brought in for engineering was First Tech Challenge. We needed something, a special big project for my second level engineering class to take on. And to this day, I always remind them the first captain was a girl. And she was fresh off of governor's school and she took a look at the First Tech Challenge and said, I got this. There were only a couple of guys on the team at first, and she recruited the rest, you know, and we had a team that first year, 3774. And they were my second level engineering class, and that was their big project for the year, get that whole program going. and she was the lead. And so after that, it became two teams. A few years later, it was mostly guys taking it over. We'd have like one girl, and I'd say, well, think about it like this. If you have a good rock band, they need one female singer. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need, unless it's an all girl band, you balance off all the guys, you're enough. So for a long time, that was it. Now, before I left, I was coach for 15 years, and eventually we had four teams. The second team came along in the second year because the team that took over from her, the girl that she had groomed a bunch of them, they realized, hey, we're all going to graduate. We're the senior engineering class, and nobody's going to be taking over. We got to get a farm league or a farm team. And that team eventually eclipsed the ones that went into senior engineering to the point where the other teams formed, and it was so popular that I couldn't contain it in senior engineering anymore. It was strictly extracurricular with coming after school every day, staying till forever. They were addicts. And and I and I liked it because then I had to learn everything first and then make sure they knew what they were doing. But so many times I would learn everything, especially when we started using Java. That was the last language I learned when I was working in industry. Spent a whole summer learning everything about Java. And there was a new member of one of the teams. He took one look at it and said, I got this. And he was that good. Today he's making six figures somewhere for Microsoft.
Yeah.
No, so that's a long story. I retired 2 years ago and I turned over everything and I still see my teams. I stayed with the Robotics League to help out. I can referee, I work with tech support, I interview for Dean's List, a whole bunch of different things. So I was able to leave behind an engineering program and sometimes to some degree the science research program, even though a much younger teacher took it over while I was still there, which was much better. I think she was half my age. So, but but that was it. I stayed with it. And even after I retired, other people, I'm still working with SWE, and there's a new program out there called Jersey STEM that I hadn't heard of. But one of my former students she's working, there's a special thing where college girls work with middle school girls and teach them STEM, and they have designed courses and everything for them. And it was one of the students who was really one of their good ones. And she asked, and the directors of the program asked her, who inspired you? And they said, well, you have to look her up. She was my high school engineering and robotics teacher, and they found me.
Yeah.
So I'm working with them now too. So I'm happy to continue in my retirement and helping out and being a mentor and, you know, whatever I can do.
Yeah.
So that's my crazy story.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
what
definitely.
questions would you like?
So as we kind of as now, looking back on your coaching time, how do you think your kind of career affected or motivated your coaching and in what kind of way?
Definitely motivated coaching because I was looking for something to bring in to really enhance the engineering program. And First Tech Challenge really helped. Plus the fact that there were spin-offs that I could use in teaching engineering in my classes, because not everybody in the engineering classes was on the robotics team. In fact, sometimes it was only a few. So many of the things that we were learning for the team to do, I could use in my classes, because I was teaching engineering. And also some of the things I had in my engineering class helped the robotics team. So it
Yeah,
was kind of a trade back and forth. We did
definitely.
the two things helped each other.
100%. And kind of as we continue talking about your coaching, what do you think is the biggest challenge that you saw girls on your team face?
Sometimes the guys would make them do all the documentation.
Yeah.
I always looked at it. Of course, there were a couple of girls who lived to document. That
Yeah.
was it. In fact, we would have a big thing at the beginning of every year where we'd have like an open house party, invite everybody in the school in, let's see the robots, who wants to join the team. And they would have a team presenting, here's what you want to do if you're a coder, and here's what you want to do if you're an engineer for building. And then they had a whole team just presenting documentation.
Yeah.
And the one girl who led that, she was like, this rocks. We follow everything. You know? And she was like totally into it, you know. She was like, we can we can make presentations look good, you know. But in the end, you know, sometimes that was a problem. But there were some girls that were very good, and it was hard. Sometimes it was hard for them to get a place on the team. Um, Although I'll tell you, sometimes the guys recruited girls. There was one team that was very successful. They went beyond states. It was the only time I had a team do that. Um, we had super regionals, and this one team captain, there were like 10 guys on the team and three girls. One of them was in the senior engineering class, and she was pretty good. You know, she was one of the building team, and you know, you could hand her an Allen wrench and she knew what to do with it. Um, because she was the only one, the captain was looking out for a few others, and he knew she had a friend who was also very smart in STEM. So he recruited her as kind of a backup. Let's teach you a few things. We were hosting an early meet at one point, and we solicited volunteers from the school to help us put it on. It was the opening meet of the season. Our school was hosting it, and we had a bunch of things to do. You know, we had to get kids in the snack table, and we just recruited people from the school. And this one girl who knew all the team members came out because she was trying to win an award for the volunteer hours. She had such fun working with the team, and she would put on the mascot suit. She would help the guys. She was just doing everything for us. And she said at the end of the mat, she goes, I had such fun. Can I help your team all the time? And the team captain came to me and said, can we recruit her for PR? You know,
Yeah.
she's not technical at all, but we want somebody like that.
Yeah.
And so they did. And she came to every meet and she was their PR person. She helped with documentation. She helped with, like, she was the greeter. She was, you know, as I said, she would wear the mascot suit. She would do everything, you know. So we had, you know, it wasn't her suit, but she had such fun supporting us that the team captain was like, no, 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 we need her on the team, like recruit her, you know.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we had a space, so you know, that was one of the ways we got her. Um, but as I said, sometimes the girls now, before I left and retired, there was one team that was run by girls, fortunately, because some of the smarter ones just took over and they were like, okay, we know what we're doing, you know. And I think that was, you know, a really nice thing. Um, I would always remind them that it was a girl who started the program. We were at a function at the Hudson County Community College that was for girls, you know, girls in tech, they would call it. And they would have guest speakers and tech activities for the girls. And we always booked it every year. And they could do presentations of technology, like usually science projects. One of the things they would ask the girls to do is research an item of technology and tell its story. So we had some really cool projects. Like one year they did toothbrushes. A team researched the story of the toothbrush, you know, and somebody did a story of telephones, but not like cell phones. They went back to his like early telephones and went all the way through. Somebody else did the oldest toy, the doll. And it was cute because she had all kinds of technical, you know, like they made talking dolls at a certain point. Even Edison had a talking doll. It was really cute. So they did these presentations. One of the companies that sponsored it is the company that this girl who founded the team is working for. She's a civil engineer now. And she would come and work on the activities. And I told the girls, and I said, she's coming with her company. And they were like, you can meet her. And they treated her like she was a goddess. And it's like, we have to meet you. we heard all about you, you know.
Yeah.
Yes. And some of them were on the robotics team, and it's like, you're like a goddess to us, you know that, you know. So, she holds a special, thing, like a place, because I always reminded them, and it was the one who founded 3774. It was a girl, but now there's some other girls who are in charge. Like when I left, it was a group of girls who were running 4890, you know, and it's different distributions. I'm not sure how is, I'm 2 years away from it now, so I don't know as many kids on the team. They've graduated and moved on, or the four teams. So, but it's fortunately it's still going and it's still popular, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, and I can see them. I get to do the fun parts now. I get to set up, come there, do the FTA once in a while. I have to learn. It keeps me thinking.
Yeah.
Help with judging. Vince teases me that I should bring all of my shirts in case they figure out they need me for something else. So I'm happy to do it. As I said, in my retirement, it keeps me thinking.
Yeah,
So
definitely. 100%. So kind of as we, wrap up for today, why don't you give any advice that you would give to girls who are interested in joining any of the first programs or just pursuing STEM in general, but might be a little bit afraid?
don't be afraid. Even the littlest thing can help you. Um, you'd be surprised. One of the years, there was one girl on the team in the early years, and she graduated. She spent 1 year on the team. That's it. She was trying to find her own way, whatever. 3 years later, I came back to NJIT for an alumni event because it was an anniversary event, and I went to this. She went to NJIT. I hadn't seen her in since she graduated high school. She was a rising senior. It was late May, so she was just finishing her junior year. She was a rising senior, and she was running the event. Turns out she had switched to technical management, engineering management program, and part of her work was to help run this alumni event. So she sees me come to sign in, and she ran up to me and hugged me, and she goes, "Miss Aloya, you'll never believe this. I'm doing so well. I'm going to graduate in January instead of in May. I'm going to finish early, and I have a job offer." And you know what made the job offer? They saw that on my high school activities, I was on a robotics team, and they asked me to talk about it. And that made the difference. They offered me the job after.
Yeah.
So that little thing, she felt like she wasn't doing anything on that team. She tried her best, but she said just talking about it to these managers, she got her dream job. And she was so proud to tell me about that. So this is resume fodder. Anything you do in STEM, especially with robotics, increases your chances of getting into the college of your choice. Even like, as I said, going for a job many years later, you were on a robotics team. Tell me about that. That's the kind of thing that may come back and help you out. And network. Get to know everybody. You do that, of course, on Don't Blink. You get to meet all these nice people. You do things like this. You'll find out all these really cool things. And it'll help you in the end. When you're in a job interview, you'll sound like you really know what you're talking about. And that's what they want to hear, you know? And even if you're like, hey, I really need to learn a lot, they'll see somebody who has the potential to learn because you took on some chances, you know? You tried something new, and that shows, you know? As I said, I didn't have any guidance. I had a crazy career path. I had to find my way to engineering. I wish I'd seen it sooner. I'm the first engineer in my family. And trust me, there weren't too many guys who went to college before me. Let's put it that way. I'm really the first girl to do it.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal. And if you're in that position, don't be afraid. You'll find it. And even if you don't feel like you're finding it immediately, you will. If you're interested, people will help you. Um, and everything will work out, you know?
Yeah.
So I can say that after a long and windy career, but you'd be surprised,
Yeah.
and let it surprise you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, thank you so much for joining me today. Everything you said was truly amazing and very inspiring. And again, First is a very amazing program. It gives back to a lot of people,
Oh,
and it's
absolutely.
definitely worth the amount of hours and late nights you put
Hmm.
in. So 100%. Is there
Hmm.
any last things you would like to say?
Thank you and stick with it.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, and thank you to the viewers for listening to today's episode of Beauty and Brains. I hope to see you next Sunday. Thank you.